After I first reviewed The Evil Within, I started talking about how horror games really aren't what they used to be. A lot of things that were genuinely considered scary now seem somewhat silly, mainly because of the oversaturation of horror video games. And so with the recent flooding of all these horror games coming out, I was genuinely surprised by this one right here called Resident Evil VII Biohazard. Now, I had thought that the Biohazard meant like the other name for Resident Evil, because in other countries the Resident Evil series is called Biohazard instead of Resident Evil. But no, it actually pertains to the game because a lot of events are caused by a biohazard. Now, Resident Evil 7, well, I was a little bit skeptical when I had first seen it. I was like, well, 6 wasn't so good, but some of the other games, 4, 3, 2, and 1, were pretty enjoyable, and I think some of the spin-offs had a lot of good things to offer as well. So going into this, I had no real idea what to expect. Now, I don't own a PlayStation VR, but I do know that this game is VR accessible, and I've heard good things about it. So I picked it up and I gave it a playthrough. And I've gotta say, damn, I was really impressed with Resident Evil 7. It takes a lot of what we liked from the old games, and some of which is okay from the new games. It's kind of like a mix between Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 4. 4 having really good storytelling, and 1 having, being trapped in a house, a resident, that is in fact full of evil. And there's, the zombies and monsters and all that good stuff to fight, and plenty of fantastic boss fights to keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, I will say the opening of the game is perfect in how it sets up everything else. So you start off in a very Outlast kind of setting. Now, I will note that Resident Evil 7 is from a first-person perspective, which hasn't been done except for rail shooters, so that was a little jarring at first, but I got used to it quickly. Now, as you go through the house, it's bright outside, and you're looking for your wife, typical horror video game plot. Wife's gone missing, gotta go find her. So as you're exploring the house, you come across a videotape. And this was an interesting mechanic where you actually view the events of the past to give you like a heads up into the future by watching pre-recorded videotapes. But they are interactive, so you can interact with the tape. So I thought that was a nice touch. So you're exploring the house, and when you get to the basement, you see your wife, and you're like, holy crap, it's my wife. My wife's here. Yay, oh my god, she's fine. And then she's all like weird and screwy, she's like, Daddy's coming. And I'm like, of course, they gotta call the dude Daddy, right? So after trying to escape with your wife, for some mysterious reason that I'll talk about later, she attacks you, right? And you like drive an axe into her face, and I'm sitting there like, well, she didn't last very long, did she? So after that, after the brutal axe fight you have with your wife, you continue to explore trying to get out because you're like, oh god, just killed my wife. And then you run into her again. And she's like all zombified now, and she's like, it's okay, honey. And she goes like ape shit, right? She stabs your hand with a screwdriver, and you're like stuck against the wall, and then she gets a chainsaw, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a freaking chainsaw. And she comes in, and she cuts your hand off, like right there, right? And you're stuck like screaming, holding this stump of a hand, and I'm just like, please stop. Okay, that's enough. Don't worry about that. You actually do get your hand back, and you reattach it just fine. It's not really a problem that comes off because there's this like magic green goo or whatever that you just like put on it, and then it fixes everything. I always thought that was kind of weird in Resident Evil games because it's not like we actually have goop that could stop you from if you get your arm cut off, right? One moment, please. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. I need my juice. My vital juices. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Okay. All right, where is it? Where's my juice? I need my juice. Oh, there it is. Oh, jeez. Good as new. So, Resident Evil 7. So after you have this dogfight with your wife, and you shoot her a couple times with a gun, and she's like, oh, but honey, I love you, and she's like bleeding on the floor or whatever, you get your butt beat by Daddy. And what happens is you get knocked unconscious, and he's like, welcome to the family, boy. So then you wake up, and you're like strapped to this chair or whatever, and he tries to force feed you some like redneck garbage or whatever, and you heroically bust out. But at this point, you still don't have a gun. Now, you had the gun for the fight with your wife. Now, this led me to believe that it was going to be a little bit more like Outlast, where you really don't have any means of defending yourself. And then, after receiving the weapon, I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit more like Condemned, whereas Condemned, you start with a gun and you think it's going to be a shooter, but you run out of bullets like that, and then you have to like fight for your life with like a stick. However, I was wrong on both accounts. This first part is a lot like Outlast, and if you're a fan of Outlast, you're really going to enjoy the first hour or so of this game. But after that, you quickly receive a knife, a gun, and then soon enough, you get the shotgun. And the shotgun's pretty awesome. Now, it's not like typical Resident Evil games where you can upgrade your weapons, so it's more like the classic style where you have weapons and that's all you have. So they do the same amount of damage throughout the game. I don't particularly miss the upgrades from other Resident Evil games. In fact, I think it was kind of nice just to have a gun and knowing that it's going to do the same amount of damage throughout. So I knew that the enemies I would be facing would not have some like ridiculous curve where their health was like astronomical and I had to upgrade my guns appropriately. So it was nice to have that. But I will say that the game kind of changes after you get the shotgun. One reason being, it's a shotgun. Anything that's in front of your shotgun will most likely die. A lot of the enemies you can kill in one blast, though shotgun shells are limited for a lot of parts of the game. But that being said, the game is still excellent. The environments are very flushed out. Everything looks amazing, especially with the first-person view. I was a little bit skeptical, but it looks gorgeous. And the gameplay is very, very tight, especially for a Resident Evil game. It's a little bit closer to Resident Evil 4. You can move while shooting, but your movement speed is always a little bit slow. Now, I attributed this to the main character, Ethan, not being a trained fighter like Leon or Chris. So obviously he's not going to have crazy stamina, or he's not going to have the crazy speed that these other characters have that have been fighting zombies forever. And this guy's been fighting them for like 20 minutes. So very quickly, through some small enemies and then a boss fight, you quickly learn how to play the game and you get very, very good at it. Now, there are some moments where it gets it gets really Resident Evil-y. You know what I mean when you fight those bosses, the ones that are made of tentacles and had a large amount of eyeballs that you have to shoot. But it's a lot better than a lot of the Resident Evil games have been previously, and it's a very, very awesome addition. And I really look forward to see what Capcom can come up with next. Now, some people argue that the campaign is short. I could see where you would think the campaign is short, but I feel like it's as long as it needs to be. Any longer, I feel, would have just really drawn it out, especially towards the end of the game where you're all souped up with all these weapons that you've been collecting, and you're kind of overpowered at that point. So I feel like the game ended when it should have, and it was a very nice tie-in leading into other games in the future. My one criticism of the game that I really didn't enjoy was there's a part where you get a serum, and the serum is supposed to like heal anyone infected by this biohazard that this family's been infected with. So you only have one, and you have a choice. Save your wife, who is the purpose of you going on this mission in this game, or save Zoe, who's this chick who's been like helping you throughout the entire game. Now, honestly, my first instinct was to pick Zoe, because I'm like, oh god, my wife kind of sucks. But then I thought about it, and I was like, I have more of a history with my wife, and clearly my character, Ethan, really does love his wife, so it probably would be right to save her over Zoe, this person that he's just met. So I did the right thing, and I chose my wife. I gave Mia the serum, and we rode off, and then, you know, Zoe's all sad on the boat. She's like, I knew I'd never escape this place, and what have you. But later I found out that you can actually choose to pick Zoe, and if you do, you actually get the bad ending of the game, and I was really surprised with that. I think it would have been cool if the ending was unchanged except which character you were with, because there's a section of the game where you play as Mia, finding out her backstory and why she was on this mission and how she ended up where she was and how she got in contact with this virus. And it would have been cool to me if the story didn't change, but you just played as Mia or Zoe. Now, if you end up saving Zoe over Mia, when you guys are riding in the boat to the next level, Zoe is killed instantly because she's too infected or something like that. And then what happens is your wife actually ends up dying after you have a fight with her. You actually kill her this time. Whereas if you choose to save Mia, she throws you out of the room, locks the door, and then she's safe on the helicopter with you when you get rescued out of the estate. But besides that, the game's awesome. Its story is really, really good. I really wanted to collect all like the journal entries to see what happened and make my own accords of what was going on. And I was very, very impressed. So if you're a fan of horror games, definitely check out Resident Evil 7. It's a bit of it's a nice combination of things old and new, and I feel like it has a lot to offer any fan of the survival horror genre. And it really does exemplify what makes a good survival horror game. Well, this has been another episode of Kirk Talk. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.